Hello folks, I hope we are live. I just want to make sure that the audio and video are completely fine, that you can see me and hear me clearly. We're going to discuss CAT 2023. We're not going to discuss specific questions and the rest of it. We're just going to have a chat about how the paper was, what section might have been difficult, easy, all of that. I'm just going to do one round of check to make sure that the streaming is working on my phone. Please do comment to know whether the audio, video, everything is fine. I wrote slot 3, so I'm going to focus more on slot 3. But I think the broad patterns are same. What section might have? Yeah. The volume seems to be working. Lovely. We should be good to go. I'm going to wait for a minute and a half to maybe collect thoughts from you guys and get some feedback, get some chat. Audio, video, all good. Lovely, 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 lovely. Lovely, I'm going to wait for maybe one more minute. Please send in your thoughts. We'll have a chat about this and that. I had a chat with a bunch of people about slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, everything.
Degmasan follows the crowd, and he's having the blood.
Sorry. It went off to some dramatically different thing. Lovely, 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 lovely. First cut thoughts. VRC was all right, LRDI was all right, Quant was significantly tougher than last several years. I've been taking CAT since 2010, on and off throughout. I missed maybe a couple of years, but otherwise I've taken almost all the exams. It's probably the toughest Quant section I've faced in the last 10, 12 years. They're tougher than last year, and I thought last year was tough. I was whining about last year's Quant a little bit. Quant was properly tough. There were quite a few questions which had tricky ideas, lots of algebra, lots of x's and y's and m's and n's and p's and q's, lots of questions with minimum, maximum, with nothing concrete to go with. Even the arithmetic questions had stuff like A, B, and C finished a task if all three of them can do it in more than 7 days and two of them can do it in less than 15 days. What are the range of values possible for the third one? Stuff like that. So not easy. Bunch of questions in exponential and logarithm, questions on logarithm and progressions put together. And it's all tiring. So I missed a couple of, I won't call them sitters, but I missed one or two that I got one question wrong twice. And I had to do it a third time. Because I was making some computation error, I got one answer that's not there in any of the choices. I was this tempted to mark the nearest one and say, chalo yaar, let me just put it in and then just go on, pretend this never happened. I didn't, but I think that was because of the fact that I got it wrong twice over and I had to do the question 3 times because of fatigue. Every question was tiring. There were no freebie marks at all. Right? That's my first cut thoughts. I took slot 3. Broad thoughts. The slot, all 3 slots, VRC was typical, nothing unusual. For RC passages, passages were reasonable to read. Anyone could have read 2 or 3 passages without having difficulties in understanding what was said. The questions did not carry too many double negatives, triple negatives. Some required some critical thinking. One passage was tough to grapple with and grab, but nothing funny, nothing funny. I actually thought VRC was slightly easier than last year. Which is good news. I enjoyed reading good news. I enjoyed reading the passages. I was not stressed. I was not fuming. I was not tired at the end of it. LRDA there were not freebies in LRDA, but there were rather solvable sets. So this is the feedback I've got from all 3 slots. If you were many people would have done 1 set for sure. That's all the target we keep talking about going into the exam, saying, look, 1 set we have to do. Of the 4 sets, the level of difficulty variance was not huge. Nothing was an absolute freebie, pure DI set where you just look at the chart and mark the answers. Nothing was like that. But doing 1 set was doable. And several seem to have attempted 2. So attempt 5 questions in a set, be reasonably confident all 5 are right, and then maybe attempt 2 more questions, 3 more questions. That's the more feasible range. Moving to quant, as I said, significantly tougher than any quant I've seen in the last 10 years. This is the toughest quant in the last 10 years. And I think I'm accounting for the fact that maybe I didn't have a great day, maybe I was tired, all of that. But having said that, quant is my sweet spot, a topic that I get happy with, that I can shift to autopilot every now and then, not get tired, all of that. And I found it very tough. And so I'm not being very cocky about it, but quant is my comfortable section, and I got beaten up in quant. So I'm not speaking from a point of arrogance, but saying, look, relatively, I'm at home in quant, and I got beaten up. Fine. So there were too many questions that involved solving till one point and then resolving to find another answer. There was one question with progressions and logarithm where you had to solve for some x. And then the question didn't say what is x. The question said what is the common difference. So you had to find this x, and then you look at the question and say there's no choice giving x. And then you go back and realize, look, we don't want x, we want the common difference. So you plug in x into the terms and then find the common difference all over again. One, we get two values of x and one doesn't work, the other one works, and then you find the common difference. So you solve for 2.5 minutes, get to a point, and then you get an x. And then you can't just mark the choice. You solve for another minute and then mark a choice. So everything was like, they almost said, look, if a question takes 2 minutes to solve, then it's nice, doable, but we won't leave it at that. 2 minutes to solve, ask for one more thing. So another half a minute, another 45 seconds. There was one question with angles in geometry. You had to find one angle, and which is a nice question, nice challenge. You could find that angle, 105 degrees. You could find that angle. I thought they were asking us to find the angle. No, they were not. Then they asked us for the ratio of AD to BE, which is a pain. So you have to find this angle, and then you're like, look, why the ratio of sides? Then think of trigonometry, think of sine rule, and then resubstitute with that angle, and then figure out something, and then mark the answer choice. So everything was, several questions were two layered. So there was one question which was like, A is a mixture of P and Q, B is a mixture of Q and R. I'm mixing A and B in the ratio m:/n to get C, and in C I'm adding an equal quantity of milk. What is the percentage of sugar in the overall solution? Some such. So layered, do this, do that, plug it in, don't miss any detail, understand that there's some new thing being added to C, and then write the percentage in the answer. So I again, because everything was multi-layered, because there were no freebies, we get tired. Fatigue starts creeping in because you're continuously dealing with M's and N's and P's and Q's. There's no freebie marks anywhere. There's no question, just pleasant. Okay, 40% more, 20% less, multiply by 1.4, multiply by 0.8, get to the answer. You find the answer is nice, 11,200. The numbers match. Very happy. Nothing, just computation like simple interest, compound interest, two mixtures being mixed. Nothing in a template. The pipes and cisterns questions involved maximum, minimum. The algebra questions, I thought it was a heavy duty, painful algebra question and quadratic equation. Then I came back and said, not even quadratic equation, just linear equation, simultaneous equations. And all we had to do was a1 by a2 equal to b1 by b2 equal to c1 by c2. I didn't do it because I looked at that question, there's some a and b square, and like, look, a, b, and then there is x. Why? It was nothing question, but I missed that question. I didn't do that question because I did not understand. This is a simultaneous equation in x and y with infinite solutions. Plug in one expression, solve for a, b, write the answer down. That's all it asked for. But by that time I was tired and I was burnt out with looking at so many variables that I didn't pick. It was just a linear equation question. So I'm reasonably sure it's not unusual. It's not like I was particularly bad and I don't understand what linear equations and quadratic equations are. Every question was tiring. Every question was multi-layered. Every other question had several variables in x's and y's. And questions involved multiple topics. You had to solve and then resubstitute and then solve something else to find the answer. So it was time consuming and stressful, which I think that the fact that it was unusual and stressful like that would have caused errors. Errors would have crept in and fatigue would have crept in. So we might have missed on some absolute freebie, not because we're not good or it's an unlucky day or something like that, but because of the fatigue in solving all these trickier ones. And so I thought because of that, I think quant was unusually difficult. It was several tough concepts, lots of algebra, lots of variables, lots of equations, multiple concepts sitting in one idea. Dealing with mixtures, then dealing with inequality. Dealing with pipes and cisterns, then solving for maximum or not writing what is maximum, what is minimum. Dealing with exponents, but 5 power m, 2 power m, and 3 power n, some whole m plus n, some whole new thing. So there's lots of variables. So time consuming, difficult, and tiring. So I think quant was unusually tough. Significantly tougher than last year, probably the toughest quant section I've seen in the last 10, 12 years. Super tough. And so, some people are discussing questions and having answers. Answer is 17 for the ratio question. I hope you're right. In 15 and a half, yeah, I hope you're right with all this. Because I got these numbers. I remember 15.5, I remember 17. Those are, these, in hindsight, it looks like, oh, kya percentage se kar do, aa jayega. No, in that sitting there, in that moment, having skipped 3 questions, dealt with X, Y, and left a question, and then doing the question was tough. Quant was cripplingly tough. Sometimes I struggle with figuring out how difficult VRC is. So sometimes I don't venture too much into saying, look, VRC was tough or easier than this year, last year, etc., etc. I can say for sure that quant was tough. The simpler topic questions involved multiple layers. Several questions with what is the range of values possible, what are the sum of all possible values, that type, maximum, minimum. Those more X, Y, A, B, P, Q, M, N all over the paper. Even the simpler topics involved algebra and variables, which is a pain. So it's not just difficult, not just time consuming, also tiring. So there will be fatigue errors for several people. And then you're just getting tired and making some mistake and then rebooting and starting. It's also a slight surprise element, right? So this is not supposed to be this tough feeling we got during the exam. We had to recalibrate and adjust. So quant was definitely tough, no doubt about it. I'm not going to get into slot-wise comparison and which of the following is not a possible value. That type of question was there. Complex set of questions. Semicircle, rectangle question, I think is 2:1. I don't know. I'm not confirming. I want to discuss answer. AC set and DLR, I don't know. I didn't even touch that. Super, cutoffs wise, I'm not going to venture too much into it. If you had to do a comparison with last year, I would put it as VRC being 5% simpler, which is not much, practically the same level of difficulty. Perhaps a smidgen simpler, so practically the same level. And so I would put every cutoff we saw last year more or less the same level for 99th, 95th, 96th, whatever you're doing. And LRDI, I would say was 10% simpler. So this was more attemptable. There was no nightmare set. You get stuck here, you're killed for 25 minutes, you may not even get the answer that kills your whole score. I didn't hear of those sets from the other 2 slots. They were not there in my slot. Nothing was a freebie. It was tiring. You had to be very careful. You had to be on top of your game. But I feel like 25% of students, or not 25%, maybe 15% of students would have got one set completely correct. 5 questions right in LRDI, 15% of students would have got, which means getting 5 questions right is going to put you at 85th percentile, not the 90th percentile, which it used to be, which it usually is. And so therefore, I think LRDI is 10, 12, 15%, maybe 10%, 12% simpler than last year. So every cutoff, for like would have got 15% more marks. So 20 marks gave you a percentile, it would have to be 24 marks, 25 marks this time around. And so slightly higher for LRDI because simpler paper. Quant, I would argue, was 20% tougher than last year. So if 50 marks got some score, some percentile, 40 marks will get that percentile this time. So you take off 20% marks at the top for the same percentile, that will be there this time. That's my gut feel. So verbal 5% simpler, practically same. LRDI 15% simpler, 10 to 15% simpler. Quant 20-25% tougher. So the overall, therefore, it could be like, okay, overall marks not wildly different from last year, with everybody scoring typically like for like. Not everybody, people are not going to write the same exam. Slightly more in LRDI compared to last year. Practically the same in VRC, maybe 2 marks, 3 marks more, and lower in quant. the VRC +2 and LRDI +4 offsetting the -6 or -8 in quant. Overall tougher than last year because of the extent to which quant was intimidating, but other two sections by and large more well behaved than quant. Quant was a nightmare. Coming to the other questions, quant was particularly tough for non-engineers. I thought so. There were too many questions that were from that involved too many x's and y's and quadratics and this, and not elegant questions. Well, CAT usually comes up with beautiful questions. That's questions that put a smile on your face. They're like, acha the idea. It was not there. It was just grind after grind after grind. It was built for someone who can hustle, not for someone who's looking for juicy, elegant, interesting, fun, beautiful solution. None of that. None of that. The quant basically said we want drill sergeants, not artists. And so I'm not happy with that. But it was the topic range, the algebra bias, the exponential and logarithm bias, the geometrics, infinite geometry is sitting inside another infinite geometry. The APGP, whether two different APs and how many common terms are there, what are some of all those terms. Although the topics where you got the funda, those questions were very time consuming, and almost half the questions were tough to grab the funda. And some questions I was actually very happy. I was on fire because I got the idea straight away. And I thought, so the 3-4 questions I got the idea straight away and I'm rolling. And I still struggled. So I'm very confident that quant was significantly tougher than the last 2-3 years, because I made some mistakes and I understand that. But 3-4 ideas were like, I read the question and said, beautiful, I know this funda, I'm plugging it here. And I plugged that funda directly without pausing for thought. It's like, so I'm saving half a minute, 1 minute, half a minute, 1 minute here, there. In spite of all those savings, it didn't take me anywhere. So it was so properly tough. Cutoffs wise, as I said, VRC 5% simpler, LRDI 10 to 15% simpler, quant 20% plus tougher. Like for like, whatever marks fetch some percentile, we can adjust for that. So if 25 marks was a certain percentile for LRDI, that will be there this year for probably 29 or 30 marks. If verbal, you got some percentile for 30 marks, it will be 32 marks, 33 marks this time. Quant, if 40 marks fetched a percentile, 32, 33 will fetch the same percentile. Right, so that is my gut feel. Obviously, unverified and unmoderated and all the caveats, vagara. This is the same feedback, same thoughts I got for other slots as well. I spoke to a few people. Last year, every slot had one EC LRDI. This time it was not there. Correct, I'm with you there. There was no freebies in LRDI, which made it sometimes stressful. But the range of difficulty was narrower. There were one set that was solvable in 15-18 minutes, and perhaps one more in another 15-18 minutes. 18 minutes for one, 18 minutes for another. That doesn't mean in 40 minutes we can do 2 sets. The math doesn't work like that at all. Exam context and making one mistake and bouncing back and time pressure turning on. So the 2 sets each solvable in 15 to 18 minutes. But solving both would have been magically good. Section cutoff for quant, I think 5 questions all correct, 88th percentile will be crossed. 7, 8 all correct will be 90th percentile plus. So I think we typically go in saying, look, people can usually do 10, 11 questions in this exam and get 90th percentile. I think that math of doing 10, 11 questions and getting 90th percentile won't work. Doing 10, 11 questions in this paper is super tough for quant. But 7 questions all correct or 8 questions all correct is, I think, will comfortably breach the 90th percentile mark. So 8 all correct and you're covered for quant. The marks, numbers will be fine. So I think there will be several students who will get more, or the absolute marks in quant and LRDI will be same. Or LRDI marks could be higher than quant marks. Done 1 set LRDI completely correct, 15 marks. 3 more questions, 24 marks in LRDI. 9 questions, 1 wrong in quant, leaving 23 marks. Very much possibility. Both will be good scores. So quant was 5 questions all correct in quant, 80th percentile section cutoff levels will be breached. 7 or 8, 90th percentile will be breached. 11 and 10 correct will not be a super good score in quant. Somebody who's done 13, 14 and expecting everything will correct, fly, the score will fly. 40 marks in quant will be a killer score. By my killer, I mean you're flirting with 99 plus percentile. There'll be like a handful of people who attempted 20 questions and stuff like that. By handful, I mean 2 digits, not 1,500, 70 people, 60 people. There's some obscenely, insanely good math students out there who are at home, who've living in the math world, who solve tons of questions with algebra because of their some other preparation or JE or whatever, and they're there, who are prepared for CAT as well, who are living math day to day. That handful, 50, 60 would have done 19, 20 questions, but definitely not an easy paper. So if you've done 13, 14 questions, I think you will fly in quant. 13, 14 will be a kick-ass score, provided most of those are correct. 14 attempted and 5 wrong is just 8 attempted. So I'm not counting it like that. So 13, 14 attempts in quant will be super good, flirting with insanely good territory. So the adjustment in quant level of difficulty, I think, will be significant. Boat and stream question, I got that question. I got lost in that question. There's some square root in the answer. I said, look, I'm not even touching this. I didn't get the crux of it. I was very sure that I was missing some data. I read that question once, twice, and I said, look, I don't even need one of the boats. I don't understand what they're saying, and I left the question. Karan Sharma saying, IIMs claim they want diversity and art students and give quant and LRDI like that. LRDI was all right, even though some math was involved. It was math with the logical reasoning level. What is median, what is maximum, what is minimum? If you know, you can attempt. So I wouldn't blame LRDI too much. But the quant was tough. I think several engineers would have also found quant tough. And I think there are a bunch of people who are really good at math. Several of them could be engineers, but I'm very sure 99% of the engineers would have found lots of the math in this tough. It's not, so sometimes I think the commerce students tend to overestimate how many engineers are super comfortable with mathematics. They're not. Many engineers carry that mild fear of a quant paper into the exam hall, very much like commerce and art students do. So there are a bunch of people who are good, who may happen to be engineers, but I don't think this was particularly engineer-friendly quant paper. Algebra intimidates engineers as well. It was a tough quant paper, no doubt about it. But I don't think it's a fiercely discriminatory quant paper. Recalibrating in the exam and saying, look, 5-6 questions, ho jayega, and managing that would have been a super important skill set. But 5-6 questions mein ho jayega. 5-6 questions all correct, you'll cross section cutoffs. Making that adjustment, being cool in that environment and saying 5-6 questions all correct is enough. That is tough. Why IIMs are making quant so tough in the past few years? God only knows. I'm not answering that. I'm not happy with it at all. I think they should figure out ways to not make the math this difficult. Quant wasn't easy for engineers also, Aditya Kumar, correct. How many did you attempt? I'm not going into that. What question options wrong? I don't know. Prediction for 99.5 percentile. Take last year's mark, maybe subtract 1-2 marks. That should do. I think usually my score performance hinges on quant. This time I think it will be on verbal. I thought verbal was doable. Sometimes I think verbal is doable and I made a bunch of errors without realizing. Sometimes I've really killed it. So it will depend on that for me individually. But verbal was fun. It was not boring, it was not a pain, it was not unusual, it was not cranky, it was not full of double negatives. It was, ho jayega type. So too was LRDI. The first 2/3 of the paper was like Yeah, ho jayega. Not too difficult, not too bad. Tough, tricky, not a plain vanilla papers are also boring, right? So it was not a boring plain vanilla paper, but nice. So far, so good. And then it just took off for quant. Score versus percentile. Look at last year actual percentiles. Like I said, VRC 5% simpler, LRDI 10-15% simpler, quant 20+% tougher. Anyone who typically attempts 20 questions in quant will attempt 16. Anybody who expects to attempt 15 will attempt 12. Anybody who expects to attempt 10 will end up attempting 7. Anybody who ends up expecting to attempt 7 will attempt 5. It's that tough. And those marks make a big difference. Some are saying AC inverter set in DILR. I'm not going into specific questions, I'm not doing that. We'll get to know in 3 days, they'll give us this, I'm not getting that discussion yet. Which was my slot? My slot was slot 3. Suffering from quantake? Yeah, tell me about it, Abhishek. Me too. How is LRDI simpler? LRDI is simpler all on a relative basis. Last year LRDI was insanely tough. Like how we are whining about quant now, I remember we were whining about LRDI last year. So LRDI, I have to put a caveat and say simpler than last year. Probably the same level as 2021. Saying LRDI was simpler than last year is like saying he's a good batsman but slightly poorer than Tendulkar. Yeah. The whole world is like that. So it's all relative. LRDI last year was insanely tough. This year is a smidgen better. DK slot 3 quant 11 attempts and 4 were pure guesses. 7 all correct should get you a good percentile. If one of those guesses are right, then it's fine. Which set was simple in slot 3? I didn't think any set was simple. There were two that were kind of doable. You could try and there was one with project score and test score. You could hang in there and do it. One was maximum, minimum, median. You could hang in there and try it. There was one question with roots and then police patrol. You could hang in there and try it. I struggled with all 3. I didn't complete 2 of the 3. I took my chances and took some guesses and rolled with it. None of the 3 was easy, but I feel like given 15 to 18 minutes, many students could have tried each of these 3 and gotten the hang of it. You cannot say 15 minutes 3, so 40 minutes mein 3, everybody can do 3, impossible. Being able to do 1 set in 20 minutes and 2 sets in 40 minutes are very different things. Do you think they made it tough to counter the insane number of entrance exam? It's a relative exam, so I don't know what is making it tough. It's just a competitive exam, right? So it's relative. Kartika asks, usually the day of the exam it feels like that. कि पता नहीं, I've spent 8 months, 9 months and मेरे पूरा emotional investment हो गया. ये लोग ने मेरा time बर्बाद कर दिया. ये तो मेरा पूरा totally distressed, पता नहीं क्या होने वाला है. All of us, several students have that feeling. It's very, very much possible that lot of you have that feeling right now sitting here. Right? So I'm not going to delegitimize that and say ऐसा मत feel करो. होगा. You spent 8 months, 9 months and a couple of questions here and there, and being intimidated by one quant section that's set out its stall to intimidate people can happen. And it seems like it's distressing now sitting here at 9 p.m. today. I'm not going to say that feeling is invalid. It is very much there. People have it. But I can tell you this much. A week later, it'll be different. It'll be different. And so we'll all realize a couple of things, that the quant was super tough. And say, okay, this was super tough. I got beaten up. People got beaten up. शायद इतना beaten up नहीं होना चाहिए था. देख लेंगे. But this doesn't mean I don't understand any mathematics. That'll happen. Two, we'll all get up and say there are a bunch of other exams too, which are reasonable, similar, that we can have a crack at. then the marks will come, will process everything. So take it from me, not because I'm a fount of knowledge, but because I've seen 15 years of this, that you will, even if you're feeling absolutely in the pitch today, it'll mean less and less in 4 days' time, and nothing much in 2 weeks' time. Hang in there. Don't let one exam define what you're capable of or anything. It's not so crucial. Getting beaten up by this quant can happen to anybody. I spoke to a couple of guys who were studs in quant. I spoke to Patrick, and Patrick was like, wow, what quant is this? Bakwas hai ye. Not bakwas hai ye, but it's super tough. So if Patrick is saying some quant is tough, it is super tough. When will we get answer key? I think within a week, maybe within 3-4 days. There was no graph chart based straightforward D. I said, yes, Astya Kumar Gupta. शायद उनको पता चल गया कि everybody was saying एक तो graph वाला होगा, उसको तो खत्म कर दूंगा. So they said, नहीं, we won't give it this time. So probably they wanted to adjust that account for that, and they said, look, I'm not giving that freebie DI set. This whole mandatory question, I didn't even understand. Some people are mentioning it in the exam. Maybe I didn't read the instructions clearly enough. Maybe they wanted to make sure that all of us had to read it. Somebody said mandatory question hai. I think that was Akshat. अच्छा हुआ मैंने देख लिया शायद I've attempted, शायद I've not attempted. I don't know what it means. I don't know how they're going to treat it. We'll get some clarity on it soon. I don't think there'll be. It was not there in the instructions. बिना मतलब में there'll be some one new question which is mandatory. I'm not sure it should be like that. I'd be insanely peeved if they pulled some stunt like that. Hopefully it is not that. Abhiram score versus percentile, we've done. BG is so sad. That is correct. Even I felt the big background was really sad. The colors are not bright. It's not my kind of background. I'm not the tech guy. Our entire team has finished CAT in different places, and it's raining all over the city. People are finding it difficult to come to our office, into the studio. So I practically just picked up one thing, just changed the thing, removed something, and I've jumped in. So I'm sorry. I apologize for the background being this sad. We'll live with it. I have a headache now, Yuvraj. Tell me about it. I want to go have something to eat and then switch off for the day. $12 in slot 3 quant is spectacular, Akshay Kumar. If everything is right, it's going to be a fabulous score. Couple of questions wrong, it's going to be still fantastic score. If you get 5-6 wrong, then you're in trouble. 12 attempted, 10 right is good. One question was marked the asterisk in VRC slot 2. This was a mandatory. Yeah, somebody said that. I don't know how they're going to treat it. We'll get some clarity on it. Maybe some gimmick, maybe something serious. I sir saying I'm having fun. Good. Chat exam में भी cheating हो रहे थे, शायद हो रहे थे. हमारे center में there was this. We were sitting there for an hour, and the invigilators there didn't do anything. They were just walking about. After the exam started, they came and said, "इसमें sign कर दो, उस form को form वाले picture के बाद sign कर दो. तुम्हारे admission form में in front of the invigilator. I'm reading a passage and I'm signing, and they did it twice over. Nonsense. They needn't have done it. It's really disrupting the flow." Quant was JEE mains level, Asitwa Kumar. Yeah, perhaps. 6 to 7 with 100% accuracy in quant are enough for 98%. Yeah, that's my gut feel. 7 questions, all correct, 21 marks. You're crossing 90th percentile. That's my gut feel. Because it's super tough. Typically, that happens at the 28, 29 mark level. I think it'll happen at 20, 21 marks level. Forget mandatory question. We'll get some clarity on it later. I felt like I was being butchered, Yuvraj. Yeah. For some reason, they didn't give me an extra rating, but no, they're very clear. They mentioned in the instruction saying you will not be given additional rating pad. Thomas Shelby, which session today? I'm not getting into individual attempts and questions. We'll do that. There'll be a time and place for that. Maybe in 3-4 days time, once they release the paper, we'll do it. So it's like we don't discuss individual questions till they officially release individual questions. Abhishek Paul, did anyone recognize you in the center? There were quite a few of our own students. They were there. We had a chat. I had a chat with several people. अब आई एम लखनऊ में एडमिशन लूँगा और फेल होके उनका 100% है यार वालों का. Soumitra is thinking about innovative ideas of revenge. Slot 1, slot 2, slot 3 में ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं है analysis wise. I think VRC was typical. LRDI was easier than last year. Still not really easy, but easier than last year because last year was super tough. Quant was significantly tougher than last year. The toughest quant of the last 10 years, no doubt about it. LRDA 6-7 questions में 98th percentile cross. Should be flirting with 98th percentile. 7 questions all correct, flirting with 98th percentile. How much will you get? God knows. Yeah, the misunderstanding odd one out for PGS. Yeah, several students, at least a few students appear to have done it. So they've marked answer choices 2, 3, 4, 1 instead of picking one thing as the wrong thing. There are 5 sentences, I think, in some of them. So you have to pick one to eliminate and not just sequence that. Some people seem to have done it. It's a pain. It's a pain. When Jatin told me about it, I was surprised. I was like, "Ye kaisa ho sakta hai?" Then I saw the exam paper. It was very much possible. There were 3 questions in a row. 2 I had to put in sequence, and the third one I was about to put in sequence, and then I remembered, I felt like, look, something seems funny here. That was the one where you're not supposed to put in sequence, but identify one thing that doesn't fit it. So it's very, it's more likely than I would have thought that somebody could make this mistake. And so therefore it hurts, right? You just figured everything out, it's just not fitting into that theme and you're getting something wrong. My heart goes out to you. But lesson probably to read questions doubly over. It's 7-8 questions in math. That should have been all right. Not bad. There were too many theta questions in the entire paper, especially in quant. Sahab Mansuri, why was second slot quant so tough? Not just second slot, quant was tough. I took third slot and I'm whining. I've been whining for so long about quant. Aradhya Maheshwari, quant 3 attempts. If 3 are correct, that should be all right. 5 I would have been happy with to get 80th percentile. 3, I'm a little worried. Dinesh is saying, thank God they were theta, at least negative marks won't be there. Sudarshan Sudu saying, toughest cat in history, probably. I thought was tougher than probably the last 3-4 years. So the chances are the cutoffs could come down a little bit. Hopefully they do. VRC 18 attempts is good. This is Aradhya Maheshwari, if errors are good. 7 attempts in LRD, all wrong. Hopefully they are not all wrong. 3 in quant, I'm a little worried. 5 I would have been like, theek hai, ho jayega. 3 is little worrisome. (18 to 20 in QA should be fine, Abhiram. 20 could take you to 20, 21, 22 could take you to 98th percentile, maybe even better. Not, when the level of difficulty becomes unusual, sometimes the scores crash even more because the stress of not getting anything right. There's so many people who might have been there in the hall who would have done 4 questions in quant in 20 minutes. And at that moment, you're not saying 4 more remaining 20 minutes, 8 questions right at probably 93 percentile. You're thinking 4 questions in 20 minutes, mera to khatam ho gaya. Because that's not what we're used to. And that moment, it's very difficult to make an adjustment and say this paper is tough. 4 and 4, 8 will be a spectacular score. You don't get that feeling at all. You feel पता नहीं क्या हो रहा है, पता नहीं क्या हो रहा है. It's just more stress that adds up. So you might end up attempting 7 instead of 8. So the scores can come even lower. Doesn't make sense to make the paper tough because of a large number of candidates. Shrey Rupani, I don't understand the link. It's a competitive exam, so I don't understand that link. 24 VRC, 20 DLR, 15 quants, accuracy not sure. Accuracy is a giant variable. These are the attempts, and accuracy is anywhere decent, you're flying. You'll be celebrating with us. Which slot chances of normalization? Normalization nahi ja rahe. Let's get the scorecards and then we'll think about that. 20 in VRC, 6 in LRDA, 7 in quant. So I mean, those are nice numbers. Those are nice numbers. If 6 and 7 are all correct, and 20 may you have, your overall will depend on your accuracy in VRC. But 6, 7 correct in LRDA, 6, 7 correct in quant. These are pleasant numbers. They'll be each individually upwards of 90th percentile or flirting with 90th percentile. If your VRC flies and you get 97, 98 in VRC, your overall could be 97, 98 or even better. So that could be a good combo. Karun RS is saying, I'm surprised you're whining about one. Typically, I whine about some section. Sometimes it turns out the section that I have underperformed in. But usually, anytime you write an exam, you always feel like you've done 2 more questions in that, 1 more question in that. Everybody has that feeling. Which slot was the toughest, Gargi? All of us guys, we write the exam and say this is tougher, that is tougher. We usually get it wrong. Usually we get it wrong. I remember 3 years ago, we all camped together and said slot 3 was the toughest, and it was not. So very, very difficult to compare level of difficulty. Nobody is writing more than 1 slot. So after seeing the papers, still difficult. After seeing the scores, maybe we can do that. Not with others. 10 correct in quant, would it be 99 percentile? Very much possible. Very much possible. Super tough paper, right? Very much possible. Hari Krishna saying, saw you in the exam hall. Yeah, good. 73,000 was one answer. Yes, Varun, I think I also got that. How long to grieve before starting 24? Come se kam ek hafta, 2 hafta, write all the other exams, other omits, then we'll worry about 24 a little later on. Mike is saying, no, I'm laughing at myself thinking how I cleared JEE. Every time I see the JEE paper, I feel like, oh, I'm very happy that part was done. I don't have to appear for that again or prepare for that again. The analyst saying I made the mistake. Yeah, my heart goes out to those people. When Jatin said that, I was properly upset that has happened. Theek hai. Doesn't determine what you are about. Don't let it get to you too much. Wonderful, folks. Good to shoot the breeze and have this conversation and have a nice chat. Hopefully, you'll all process this. Hopefully, some of you have done really well. Big takeaways, VRC, LRDI kind of okay. Quant, insanely tough. LRDI is simpler than last year, but LRDI last year was super tough. I would expect quant cutoffs to be significantly lower marks for same percentiles across the board. LRDI more like 21 and not as much as 22. VRC I thought was a smidgen easier, 4%, 5%, 2 marks simpler compared to last year, but not significant. And so, fingers crossed, continue having a big smile on your face. Those of you who made a couple of silly mistakes, have taken para jumble for sentence elimination, feel bad that you didn't pick an easy thing. It happens to the best of us and way more frequently than we think it does. And so stuff happens. So those of you who have given galis to Indian cricket players for not performing in the finals, now it's time to say, Bob, I'm writing one exam and I was so stressed and underperforming. Buggers are playing a match with 5 million people watching. Obviously, the stress has a telling impact on them also. So let's be kinder to them. Stuff happens. It's not a determiner of every year after CAT and after CAT results are are kind of good days and also really bad days for us. Sometimes we get emotionally invested in the performance of our students, and students who are generally putting so much emotional investment into this journey. And I usually hear more bad news stories than good news stories. So most people these days, we think 90th percentile. We don't think of it as I'm in top 10% of the country. We think of it as 90th percentile is mein kya aayega. We try to call that as a if not failure, at least not success. And so be so cruel. If you've got 90th percentile, that's fantastic. You're in the top 10% of people who have taken this exam. Top 10% of anything is really good. Usually a benchmark of success. Don't let 99 percentile be one sole definition of success and delegitimize your own preparation journey and make you feel miserable about it. Don't let that happen. I mean, getting stuff wrong, getting one question wrong, reading something wrong is not a crime. It's not you not preparing well. It's not some karmic thing. It's not one why me type of thing. None of that. Stuff happens, and usually stuff happens in competitive exams. So don't let that sum total of all these emotions kind of drown you out and start making you question basic life decisions and stuff. Not worth it. Simply not worth it. There are way more successful people who have not cleared CAT than the other way around. I mean, not the other way around. Than we typically assume. This is one exam. If you've done well in this exam, good. The converse is not true. If you've not done well in the exam, that doesn't mean anything. That means this 2-hour exam didn't go your way. Right? So don't beat yourself up. Give a couple of days off, 3 days off, then pick yourself up again for the other set of exams. What the door that CAT did not open, maybe XAT will, maybe SNAP will. So keep that in mind for sure. And so, and generally have a smile and carry on with the rest of your week, day, year, all of that. Fine. Super guys, good chatting with you. I think we'll get more clarity in the next couple of days. I think we'll get way more detail as to what percentile could be, what cutoff, all of that. Once the scorecards are out. My gut feel is like for like. Quant and LRDI, VRC and LRDI will be similar. LRDI is slightly simpler than last year. Quant significantly tougher. So it's a tough quant section. That I'm reasonably confident of. The quant was tough. That I'm sure of. Right? So I don't know how many of you need to hear this. So if that is there, I've taken this exam 10, 12, 14 times, and I can tell you this is probably the toughest quant I've faced. Super tough it was. And tiring and intimidating and boring and full of algebraic and variables and all of that. All the bad adjectives we can think of, quant put a tick for all of that. Don't ask me why they chose this and all that. Those why are the IIM doing this to us? We'll worry about that again later on. Super guys. Many thanks for hanging in and providing me company when you're doing this. Best wishes for the rest of the exams. We will process this collectively as a whole group of people. We'll process it over the next 2 days, and somebody somewhere we'll all come up with our theories for where the percentiles could be. Remember one thing, everybody, all of us so-called experts, we try, we gauge, we see. We usually get many things broadly right, but I've not had a year where somebody confidently had all the numbers right with reason. The real data comes out when the real data comes out. Once a scorecard comes out and marks come out, it's that much easier to predict. But the real deal comes only when the results come out. So don't give too much weightage to somebody saying this is what you should score for 98 percentile, 99 percentile. The best case scenario is that these are decent guesses. The worst case scenario, they're completely cuckoo and random numbers. Fine. Super guys, best wishes. Have a big smile. Don't let this one couple of hours experience shape how you feel about things. Pick yourself up and have a crack at the moment. So, cheers guys.